Good evening, everyone. I'm Rose Jones, and breaking news, Slobodan Milosevic, the president of Yugoslavia, has officially resigned. After a series of passionate demonstrations in the nation's capital, Belgrade, the former leader of the Socialist Party of Serbia succumbed to the pressure and resigned on October 5th, 2000. He had previously been accused of war crimes in the 90s Yugoslav conflicts.
Milosevic was born on August 20th, 1941, to Svetozar and Stanislava Milosevic. He studied law at the University of Belgrade before becoming an advisor to the mayor, Branko Pezic. Whilst in college, he befriended Ivan Stambolic, whose uncle Petar had been the president of the Serbian Executive Council, the communist equivalent of a prime minister. This would prove to be an essential connection for Milosevic's rise to power.
But Milosevic's power would grow even larger as the country went into the late 1980s. In 1987, he declared support for Serbs in the autonomous province of Kosovo, who claimed they were being oppressed by the Albanian majority government. He claimed that the government was abusing their powers and that the rights of then-minority Serbs were being stripped away. So, in order to challenge this alleged power abuse, he called for political change to reduce autonomy, protect Serb rights, and initiate a strong crackdown on separatism in Kosovo. In a now infamous visit to the Kosovo Polje to address the protesters, he famously declared, "You will not be beaten," in response to claims that Serb protesters were being beaten at the hands of local police.
Local opposition heavily criticized his words, as they interpreted the words as support to minority Serbs at the expense of ethnic Albanians and other minorities. Milosevic later defended himself from the accusations by saying that he stood for all nationalities in Yugoslavia, and that his speeches were never meant to incite nationalism. But he then gained even more notoriety after him and his wing voted the current president, his former friend, Ivan Stambolic, out of office. Stambolic would be succeeded by Petar Gračanin, a high-ranking military general, who would then be succeeded by Milosevic himself. As Milosevic moved into power, the protests of Serbs in Vojvodina and Montenegro reached a boiling point. Just 4 months after Milosevic assumed power, his supporters put pressure on opposition leaders and replaced them with pro-Milosevic ones. After this, he addressed over 1 million of his Serb supporters in the now famous Gazi Mestin speech, marking the 600th anniversary of the Battle of Kosovo. In his rally, he referenced the possibility of armed battles in the future of Serbia's national development, often being interpreted as a prelude to the bloodshed of the wars that were to follow.
And the rally certainly worked. On December 9th, 1990, Slobodan Milosevic was re-elected president of Serbia.
By then, in the other federalist republics, tensions were beginning to rise. Representatives of Slovenia and Croatia were fed up with Milosevic and his blatant favoritism toward Serbian nationalists. Tired of constantly being manipulated by the blockage of all attempts for a more even distribution of power, the Croatian and Slovenian delegations left the Congress in January of the same year, establishing multi-party elections in both states, and by June of 1991, both countries had officially declared independence from the Yugoslav government. In response, the Yugoslav People's Army sent forces to Slovenia to keep the republic from breaking away. These efforts ended up being unsuccessful, but just next door, Serbs were fighting their neighbors over in Croatia. Milosevic rejected claims of Croatian independence and sent the YPA to keep Croatia in the Union. Serb forces attempted to crush the revolution by conquering as much of Croatia as possible, and they did end up keeping a good amount of land, proclaiming it the Republic of Serbian Krajina. However, a UN-brokered peace deal stopped fighting, but only until 1995 with Operation Storm. Croats would go back into Serbian Krajina and ultimately disband it.
By 1992, even with two of the republics officially out, tensions were high across the country. And the next place where tensions were to run over the roof was Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Bosnia and Herzegovina was primarily Bosniak Muslim, with ethnic Serbs making up the next largest population. There had long been political tensions in the chambers, with both sides arguing whether to leave the Union or to stay. So, to settle the debate once and for all, in 1992 the government decided to have a referendum, and in 1997 50% majority, the population voted to leave the Yugoslav Union. This made Milosevic mad, and afterwards he famously said that, and I quote, Bosnia and Herzegovina was legally proclaimed as an independent state and recognized. That recognition was like when the Roman Emperor Caligula appointed his horse as a senator. They recognized a state that never existed before. Immediately after the declaration of independence, the Serbian government helped the Republic of the Serb people of Bosnia and Herzegovina gain independence, and then backed their military with the support of the YPA. The combined forces then marched on Sarajevo, the capital, and laid siege to it for almost 4 years. The war was long and bloody, with almost 200,000 people killed on both sides alone. Mass ethnic cleansing plagued the land, and the war tore on until peace talks in Dayton officially ended it. And although there is little to no direct evidence correlating Milosevic to the war crimes, his lack of punishment for those who have committed them has been the subject of deep scrutiny.
After the brutal wars officially split SFR Yugoslavia for good, countless citizens of the now-named Federal Republic of Yugoslavia grew tired of the countless wars and political tensions. Not to mention, the sanctions put on the country for its involvement in the Yugoslav conflicts didn't help Milosevic's popularity either. Nevertheless, his supporters were elected in local governments, sparking outrage across the country. From 1996 to 1997, countless opposition supporters marched on Belgrade to protest what they referred to as election fraud. But, nevertheless, the Milosevic majority parliament elected him as president of the whole country, sparking an entirely new conflict in the south.
Kosovo, having to endure many years of Serb nationalism, started to have civil unrest in 1995, when clashes between local law enforcement and Albanian rebels began. However, it was a clash in the Likoshan area of Kosovo between Serb police and Albanian rebel forces in 1998 that escalated the conflict into a full-scale war. And although Milosevic had invited Ibrahim Rugova, the ethnic Albanian leader of Kosovo, to discuss peace talks, he directly refused all offers of international action to end violence in Kosovo. So, NATO gave him an ultimatum: either stop the crackdown on ethnic Albanians or face airstrikes. And although the Kosovar Albanians signed the peace deal in France, Yugoslavia rejected it, leading to airstrikes in both Novi Sad and Belgrade, two of the most densely populated cities in Serbia.
Even though Milosevic was already unpopular, thanks to the instigation of several wars on his part, the airstrikes were what really put the nail in the coffin. And so, on September 23, 2000, elections were held, where Slobodan Milosevic was defeated, losing to opposition leader Vojislav Koštunica.
Initially, he refused to concede, citing a clause in the constitution in which the winner of the election had to have a 50% or more vote, and since neither Koštunica or Milosevic had results totaling over 50%, they were scheduled to have a second vote. The Serbian population was understandably outraged by this, and for 12 days following the results, protesters marched for his resignation. Caving in to the pressure, Milosevic officially conceded defeat on October 5, 2000.
Which brings us to now. Slobodan Milosevic has been living with his family in his Belgrade villa, although many accusations of war crimes and instigation of said wars have been thrown against him, possibly hinting at future arrest. Vojislav Koštunica has since assumed the presidency, and in his first act as president, he is scheduled to open peace talks with ethnic Croat and Muslim leaders in Bosnia.
MTV News. You